What's the dumbest thing your significant other has said or done? On the phone trying to describe where we are to her parents. We are behind the car that's in front of us. I lost it. I'm in the building that I'm at. In high school, my girlfriend said, "Do you know what I just realized? There's no state that starts with the letter F. We went to school in Florida." My sister did something similar. We were playing categories and one of the categories was US states. She rolled a P. Halfway through the round, my sister shouts, "That's not fair. There's not even any states that start with P." We live in Pennsylvania. We were driving one day and were stopped at a red light. She's looking at a sign and the following exchange occurs. What a dumb name for a street. Me. What street? Bone Marrow Drive. Who would name a street Bone Marrow Drive? It was a sign for a local Bone Marrow Drive that would be taking place, not the name of the street. We still talk about it to this day. Roadwork ahead. Yeah, I sure hope it does. When he first got a popcorn maker, he was excited to try it out. He got the popcorn. I think the machine came with seasoning. He got out a cereal bowl to catch the popped kernels. He scooped out a cup of unpopped kernels and put it in the machine. Now, those of you paying attention to the quantities may have noticed a fatal flaw in this plan. After a minute or so, the popcorn started coming out, slowly at first. As it picked up speed, it gradually became clear that 1 cup of popcorn doesn't fit into a cereal bowl when popped, not even close. As the popcorn started to rise higher and higher, about to overflow, with no signs of stopping. I will remember his mildly panicked face for as long as I live. At first he stood there, touching the bowl, trying to figure out how to replace it without making an even bigger mess. Finally, as the popcorn started bouncing onto the counter, he softly said, "Oh no." At that point, I couldn't hold it in any longer and collapsed on the floor laughing. Tried to make baked potatoes in the microwave for the first time, wrapped them in tinfoil. Came to ask me why there were lightning bolts in the microwave and why was it getting very hot. "Honey, I think I cooked Thor's potatoes." What do we do? I think he is mad. When my now ex-wife first started dating, I had made a roast for dinner in my slow cooker. After dinner, she was helping me clean up. I come into the kitchen, and she had the entire crock pot submerged in the sink. I asked what she was doing, and she said she was cleaning it. She didn't know that the ceramic inside could be removed to clean. After I explained that to her, she said, "I guess I shouldn't have put the whole thing under water." I said, "No," and reached over and unplugged it. I have no idea how she didn't get electrocuted. Reached over and unplugged it. Oh. I work at a school and received a candle as a gift one year for Christmas from a parent. They were known to be hippies and set in their lifestyle. My boyfriend picked it up and said, "Wow, what hipsters." They even got a candle made in Mexico. It says soy candle. The candle was made from soy wax. It did not say, "I'm candle" in Spanish, much to his disappointment and my delight. Hala milk, soy dad. My wife couldn't think of the word wood and told me to clean up my tree chunks. Don't you hate it when you get morning tree chunks? Well, it couldn't be any worse than the morning logs. Ex-girlfriend now, but one time we were talking about changes in taste preferences when she said, "taste bugs." I corrected her, and she looked at me confused. She had thought that taste buds was taste bugs her entire life up until that moment. LOL. For 45 years my aunt thought it was porthole, not portal. My husband and I were at Canadian Tire and they had tiny examples of tents. Basically looked like they were made for Barbie dolls, and the pricing for each underneath. He turned to me shocked and asked, "Why are these so expensive for such tiny tents?" I almost died laughing. What is this? A center for ants? My boyfriend thought that a sushi roll was a cross section of a raw eel. Amazing how nature do that. Damn, nature, you tasty. One time my husband called me at work. "Babe, you're gonna be mad. I made a mess but don't worry, I'll fix it." I didn't even ask, just sighed, because he is basically Lucy from I Love Lucy. When I got home a little bit later it was to a living room covered in grey powder. My husband completely filthy with a trash bag and broom and a super panicked look on his face. Turned out he'd decided to help around the house and wanted to clean the fireplace. He just decided the best way to do it would be to stand in front of it with a trash bag and use the leaf blower to blow the ashes in. Spoiler, that doesn't work. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but I laughed my ass off, and it's still one of my favorite weird things he's done. My eldest child was born in December 2004. This was the year that we found out that London had won the bid for the 2012 Olympics. It was announced that children born on 20/12 would get free entry to the Olympics. But what if they are not any good at sports? I had to gently explain that it was free entry to watch the Olympics. Think of the gap between 2004 and 2012. We are a year away from being that far away from 2012. One time, my wife, then girlfriend, and I were at her brother's house for a game night of Cranium. I don't remember the exact details, probably because I was in hysterics, but someone asked my wife what caused the US to enter World War II. Now, my wife is not very history savvy, probably her least knowledgeable subject. I, on the other hand, love history. Point is, she didn't know the answer. Her guess was the Boston Tea Party. I lost my shit, and so did she and everyone else. To this day, if my wife doesn't know the answer to something, I tell her to write down Boston Tea Party. In our language, maple and moose are almost the same word. To make it short, she thought maple syrup was made out of moose horn. What language? Cause I'm Canadian and those two things are like our Declaration of Independence. Once me and my SO went for a walk around a local nature reserve. On the way in we got a map given to us so we could navigate the area. Later on the walk she is looking at the map and says to me, "These maps really need you are here on them." It took me a second to realize what she meant, so I explained that it's a handheld map and that it wouldn't be possible. It took 4 or 5 attempts before it clicked with her. We were on a walk in a rural area with lots of farmers' fields full of sheep and cows. She looks off to a field in the distance, turns around to me and says, "Why do they keep birds in a field?" My boyfriend, as we were looking up at the beautiful night sky. Wow, there's so much we don't know about the universe, like where the stars go during the day. Are they still there? If not, where do they go? He was dead serious. I love my husband, but I have watched him empty a vacuum cleaner bag into a wire waste basket. I, on the other hand, am frequently unable to remember common words and have to resort to saying things like, "The box you put stuff in to make it cold. The box you put stuff in to make it cold. Your heart." She ate cold turkey to try and quit smoking. You're supposed to quit cold turkey, not start it. Everyone knows that. He picked up our friend's keys, thinking one of her keychains was a laser pointer. It was mace. He got an ice spray to the face and I was sitting right next to him, so I got a lovely dose as well. For the next 30 minutes or so the entire apartment was coughing and dying and trying to air the place out. Even our friend who was upstairs showering could feel the effects. Still love him though. My fiance was setting up for my 30th birthday at a bar. She was blowing up balloons with her mouth and taping them to the wall on the outside deck the bar had. She asked me, "Why aren't they floating up?" She genuinely threw Barack Obama's name was Black Obama, Barack Obama. And now ex, but we were trying to dirty talk and couldn't think of the word clit, so instead he said tiddly bit. I was laughing so much that we couldn't continue. Poor guy didn't get to use his wiggly stick. As we were driving along the road we saw a horse with its head over a gate. We slowed down. She opens the window and says, "Moo." And now that horse is telling all his friends about the time he was yelled at by a cow as it was driving down the road. Now ex-girlfriend from high school. Her power had gone out in the neighboring town. She called crying saying she had so much homework to complete. I said to drive to my house since I still had power. She yelled at me saying, "How dare you attempt to get me to drive? How do you expect me to do that? My headlights won't work." It didn't last much longer after that. As I'm in labor with our daughter, my husband asks, "Do you want her to have an innie or an outie belly button?" Weird question, but whatever. So I tell him I don't mind either way, both are cute. And then he says, "Yeah, but when the doctor asks, which should we pick for her?" He thought when they clamp the umbilical cord, parents tell the doctor the type of belly button they prefer. He's really smart, I promise. Threw her engagement ring out the kitchen window during an argument. She still hasn't found it yet. My favorite memory of my parents is going to some fast food joint. Through the drive-thru, mom is driving and giving our orders to the cashier. Just as she finishes, my dad casually says, "To go, my mom." And she turns back to the cashier and says, "To go." 2 seconds of buffering later and she slaps my dad full on in the chest, who is laughing fucking hysterically. Don't think we've ever let her live that down. The hardest part of writing a check is you have to write in cursive. I do. I had to explain to him that mint is a plant. I've also had to remind him that driver's licenses are in fact tied to your country. My now ex-girlfriend got a Polaroid camera for Christmas. Jokingly one day I said, "Does it take videos?" And she very seriously said, "I'm sure it does, but I haven't tried that feature yet." My husband called me one day with a wild story. He said he sharted and wanted to see if there was poop on his ass, so he stood on the toilet and spread his ass cheeks while looking in the mirror to see the damage. Then, from him standing on the toilet seat, he broke it. He fell to the floor and said he saw pubes and started puking. After all that, I asked him why he didn't just wipe his ass like a normal person, but he insisted he had to look at his butthole. I showed her how to crack an egg by tapping it against another egg, and she thought this meant any amount of force would be absorbed by only one egg, and smashed 2 eggs together, spraying yolk everywhere.